Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me here. I've got to tell you about a dream I had about a year ago. I was in Tanzania, in Africa, visiting there, and I had this incredible lucid dream one night. And the dream was about a being from Arcturus, an Arcturian, who came to me and spoke to me and said that's where he was from. And we had a wonderful conversation that ensued. But when I awoke from that dream, or was it a dream? I was left feeling like, wow, it just felt so real, as if it was my waking life. Have you ever yourself been in contact with a being from off planet? Or have they presented themselves to you even in waking life or your dream life? And if so, how did it affect you? Well, today in this episode, we are going to have a guest on here whose life has been forever changed by an off-being visitation and conversations that ensued. Welcome to Creative Visions TV. My name is Karen Dahlman. I'm the host of this show, and I'm super excited that you guys joined us here. So I'm going to tell you about my guest first before I bring her on. But the topic today is talking about being in contact with off-planet beings who change your life forever in profound ways. So my guest's careers and lifetime work spans a huge spectrum. It spans only from the business world into the spiritual world. She worked as a national consultant training and organizational development. She worked with many large businesses, including the government and employees. And then she worked with people and the planet transitioning into the fifth dimension. She has an incredible background. It spans many years. And she also is highly educated. She has a Master's of Science degree, a Bachelor's and Doctorate degree, and this is very interesting, you guys. She was an assistant professor at the University of New Mexico, where I was studying there as well. The same time she was there, it was getting my degree in art psychotherapy, and I studied at the College of Education, and that's where she taught. So, literally somewhere our lives have crossed. And here we are, sitting here today, going to have this wonderful interview. So I'm super excited about that, just that connection that we share on that level, but there's other levels too. So while it was in 1984, while she was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that she had an incredibly profound experience that forever changed her life. And this experience was she began receiving telepathic messages from beings who said they were from the star Arcturus and that they were Arcturians from the fifth dimension. Well, those transmissions continued on, and she co-wrote with a couple of women that were working with her on these transmissions a book. And then she's also written 2 more books from other transmissions she received from ascended masters. I mean, this journey, what happened to her in 1984, took her into some other realms of consciousness and beings that are here to help us and the planet transition, and so much more information. She has also developed 2 newsletters which are full of this channeled wisdom and information to help you along your path, and these have worldwide distribution. She has also taken people on spiritual journeys through every continent, you guys. The list is like this long. I couldn't even begin to list them all, but she's been everywhere and taken people for years on these spiritual tours and journeys to really take in the information and to develop themselves and to enlighten themselves in many, many ways. She channels the Ascended Masters for over 30 years. She's a popular speaker, international speaker, workshop provider. She teaches courses, and she also does personal readings. I cannot wait to bring her on. So, without further ado, I'd love for you all to meet, and I'd like for you to welcome Dr. Norma Milanovich. Yay, Norma, thank you for joining us on this show.
Thank you, Karen. It's a delight to be here with you today. And I really appreciate you asking me. It's been a long time, a couple of years since I've been interviewed, because I've been really quiet in the last couple of years doing lots and lots of work under the radar. And now I'm back again here, doing this work with you. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And I got to say, you guys, this is an honor. It's an honor to you, Norma. I want to tell you, number one, but to the audience, too. We've been connecting for quite some time, since last year. And her schedule's so busy, you guys. It's just full. It's jam-packed, and she's all over the place, like I mentioned, internationally teaching, and it's an honor to have her here with us today. So thank you for that. Now, I know that you wrote an invocation, a prayer to start with. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yes, and I really appreciate you being so flexible with this interview today. Over my journey of the last 30, 40 years or so, I've come to realize just how important protection is, and to always state your intentions clearly about what it is that you want to achieve. And it's always in service to humanity, in service to God, the creator of all. And I'd like to start today with a very brief invocation and prayer to set our intentions, and to have it also serve perhaps as maybe a seed or a role model for others as well when they start their work. Maybe there are some out there that don't do that, but I'm telling you, you get so much more mileage out of what it is that you want to do if you do it right, and do it right from the beginning. So I'd like to read what I wrote for our interview today, and that is, O Heavenly Father, we come together in thy sacred name and request protection in the light as we proceed with this interview today. Let your light shine upon Karen and me and all the viewers, and please guide this message we are tasked to bring to the world today. Let the threefold violet flame of purity transmute all negativity, so that the words will remain pure and uncontaminated. Let thy will be done through us. Thank you, O Lord. Amen.
And so it is.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You guys, it's really important. We talk about this on this channel a lot, Norma, about the idea of protection, also intention. I think to me that's where it all starts, is with your intentions.
It does. And I think we get so busy sometimes in our everyday world in just doing the tasks we have to do to survive, that even though you're on a spiritual path, a lot of people can forget these little details. And it's the little details that make you more successful in the end.
Oh, well, very well said. So, you guys, the book that I read was We the Arcturians, a true experience. So today we're going to focus mostly on that book. She's written, like I said, 3 books, and all the links will be below to her books. But let's start. I mean, I've got to tell you, this story was so fascinating to me. I just fell in love with it because, first of all, the era when it came through, 1984. You guys, we weren't doing internet then. We didn't have computers. We had word processors. I had a word processor. I went through graduate school with a word processor. But she was receiving these telepathic messages, and she had to like totally change her and shift the way she saw the world. You guys, she was an educator, a doctorate degree, teaching around the country, businesses, governments. It wasn't supposed to be woo-woo. And all of a sudden, she's just thrown into it. And I found the story so riveting, so fascinating, that I had to reach out to Norma and bring her on. So let's just talk about how this communication started for you.
Well, my story isn't probably too different from a lot of other people who, have been awakened. It was around the time I was 40, and it was also at the time when I did not have too much information about the metaphysical world. I was pretty indoctrinated into the church that I was going to, and mainstream America, basically what most Americans did. And when these psychic things started happening and flashing in my mind, where I would know ahead of time who was calling, or when I could finish someone's sentence, or where that moved more to empathic abilities, where somebody across the country would get hurt or something, and then suddenly I'd have the pain, strong pain in my back or something like that. I realized, when I made the connection to the person, sometimes days or weeks later, that it wasn't my pain, it was someone else's pain. And then I began to realize that, hey, something is happening to my own brain, my own mind. And I liked it. It was a little annoying, very annoying, because I didn't know what to do with it. But it was fun because I've always been open-minded. I always like to explore the unknown. And then more importantly, if you're on a spiritual path, you'll understand this. You're a person who's on a serious spiritual path. Their soul knows from their Akashic records these things are going to unfold. So you're not as afraid as someone else might be who isn't connected to, the spiritual realms as much. And I had started a spiritual path about that time. So I progressed through it. It started with, I was sitting at it was called TVI at the time, Technical Vocational Institute, and it's since been turned into a community college.
Right.
My job every week was to go over there for a half a day of the week, and I was to consult all of their faculty and staff and help them come into our master's programs, doctoral programs, explain to them what it is they need, what kind of courses and things to help each one. And I could see anyone in the entire institution. Well, every time I went over there, I was usually booked. There were people in line waiting to see me because it was convenient and we could bring in more students that way to the university. Well, all of a sudden, everything was different one day. I sat in this huge room. I was alone waiting for the people because I always had long lines of people to see me. There was no one there. No one there. No one there. And 10 minutes went by, 15. I had to be there for like 4 hours, so there was time, no problem. And I always brought, my work in case something, I had a break, and I'm a workaholic. I could keep working and working. And I heard this voice, a real voice. Pick up a pen. Pick up a pen. And I'm looking around and thinking, who's in the room, and it's just one of those strange, unique stories. It's only yours. And so I picked up a pen. That's kind of who I am, I'm just curious and whatever. I put it on my tablet, and all of a sudden I saw my hand starting to move. And I knew it wasn't me. See, on my doctor's degree, I had at least like 28, 30 hours of psychology classes. I love psychology. I used to teach sections of educational psychology in my classes because in teaching, that's a part of curriculum development and helping the students and children learn and things like that. So I was very, very in tune with psychology, but I wasn't in tune with the psychology of you sitting in a room holding a pen and your pen writing something and you're not writing it. That was a little different. And so I'm watching my hand do this, kind of worried, wondering if anyone's going to come in. It started with a simple word, if I remember correctly. It was like hello or hi or something like that. So I just let it keep working, and it started bringing through some words. It was so slow, though. I mean, it was just like pushing the pen through my hand and I was just fascinated, and I didn't want to interfere. Well, the bottom line is that I began to realize then that there were other things out there in the universe that I hadn't been introduced yet. I knew that it wasn't me going kind of silly or crazy or abnormal because I was always pretty much the same personality that I am today. And I'm very grounded and I take things very seriously. And so with my area of psychology to support me, I realized that this was something bigger than me, but I wasn't going to put me into a category and dismiss me, as though it was insignificant or something like that. And so from that day on, I started going with it. I would go home at night and I would practice things. Maybe after I finished teaching graduate classes, I'd be home at 10 o'clock. I'd go over and sit at a desk for 30 minutes and let the messages come through. Pretty soon it was faster and faster. And all the time this was going on, I kept, because of my love of psychology, I kept trying to study me as though, what part of my brain am I feeling this in? Yeah. Where are the words? Where is the pressure? And if there was something a little different or whatever, I would go ahead and I would note it. And I was like a researcher. I was taking notes. And that's how I proceeded. It went from slow handwritten messages to months later, it was suggested by whoever writing, Then I moved to a computer. And so I no, not computer, sorry, a typewriter then because
Yeah, word processor, typewriter, right.
on it today with the keyboard, but it was definitely a typewriter. And it was faster, cleaner, not as many errors. And then from there, I graduated to a computer when they came in, and the messages started coming faster and faster to the point where I could sit there, and as long as I could hear and type as fast as I could ask any question at all. And all I had to do is like this, and just hear the words, hear the words, hear the words, and not even think about it. Just let it come through, let it come through, let it come through. And that's what happened over the course of a few years. Now, I think the only reason that I hung in there with it, because it was so unusual and I was out of my space, so to speak, at the university with something like this going on.
Of course.
Think so? Yeah, you think so? The only reason that I really hung in there is because any question I asked, it was usually about, human behavior or this or that, not about world affairs and predictions and things like that. Every answer was so profound. There's so much wisdom and grace and love. And if you practiced what they sent through, or what I was hearing in my head, there were two criteria attached to it. One, it was information that I knew wasn't coming from me because I had no background in these areas, and yet they would put it together and it would be so incredible. And I wasn't going to take credit for something. That's at the university. You don't take credit. I mean, you get in trouble.
That's right.
Someone else's work, and it's not your work, and you claim it as your own. So that was the first criteria, is the quality of information that was coming through. And the second is, whenever I tried something that they gently suggested and guided, it changed my life for the better every single time. So I felt pretty comfortable after a year or so of, slowly marching forward, trying to figure it out. And then from there, I mean, now it's history. It's part of my life. It's part of me. I mean, it
really took off and your life changed forever, as we mentioned. Did you know at the time anything about the concept of automatic writing, which is what was happening here?
No.
Oh.
I was born and raised in a Catholic church environment. They didn't even have the word reincarnation.
No.
I've since learned that was taken out deliberately centuries ago, because they didn't want people to follow that concept, And so I had to search. There was a big metaphysical bookstore not too far from the university also. And I didn't even know it existed until this happened to me. And I was desperate. And if I did talk to a couple of people, a couple of them or one or two of them would say, why don't you go to that store and see? And then, of course, that's exactly what I did. Other people who had had similar experiences, and they would write their books, thank God for them. All of those have preceded me and are still doing that, helping people. I can't remember for sure, but I think it might have been the Kabbalion.
I thought it was called the Brotherhood of Life. Does that sound familiar?
Well, I did get some information on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not until after the Ascended Masters started coming through me, and that's the role the Arcturians played.
Yes.
In life.
They kind of transitioned you to that other level, didn't they?
Yes. In fact, I found out later that was their purpose. See, my journey in awakening with the Arcturians can also be turned into a curriculum. I think it's because I'm a professional teacher, educator, so I can see everything, in the way it develops, like a process. And I found out later that evidently where I was vibrating with my light, my spiritual awareness, and my understanding and knowledge and everything, actually positioned me at a certain level where it was like maybe let's just say the minimal level where beings like those from Arcturus could connect to me, fifth dimensional beings. So I was pretty third dimensional, going through the fourth like everyone else is. And I just had reached on my own, without even realizing it, that vibrational level. As soon as I locked into that, they wasted no time, because evidently, and what they said in the book, it's part of their job. You know, they help people with their health, education, and welfare kind of thing. I think they define themselves like our department in DC out there. And so they connected, and as long as I'm open with my free will, then they can communicate with me. They can, you know, do things. So I must have had a soul contract with them between lifetimes, you know, where I had agreed to do this. But interesting, I also, in that soul contract, I was to wait until I was 40 years old, and that veil would not be lifted before then. That's 40 is a really very important number in biblical teachings, numerology. Jesus wandered for 40 days in the desert. Moses was 40 years maybe of wandering, I think. Noah's flood was 40 days, 40, 40, 40, 40.
Yep.
My path and destiny was to have the veil down for 40 years. And I think I've learned since then that the reason that had to be that way is because I needed that time to ground myself professionally, create a resume that was really grounded in the third dimension, that was real and well earned. It was like 10, 15 pages by then. All things that I was doing. I mean, was speakers nationally and on boards of different universities and stuff like that. So I worked very hard because I loved my job. And that then would give me the foundation with the credentials to go forward in a world of 3D and to hopefully plant a few seeds and maybe forge a path for some other people who are going through something similar, so that they could, you know, follow on the same path or take another path simultaneously with me. And so that's why I had to, evidently, you know, and I'll tell you, at 40 years old, man, that veil was ripped fast from being totally, you know, kind of in the dark to all of a sudden it's like, what the heck is going on in my life? But now it becomes a war story.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, it's the way you got there. It's no big deal. At the time, I probably put more drama into it, but now today, it's just what is.
Well,
you know?
At that time, too, you know, this was considered like new agey, and being, you know, raised in the Catholic Church, that's the antithesis of what you were raised with. And also, you know, you guys, there wasn't social media and all these groups to just meet people who knew about this. I mean, if anything, you kept this stuff to yourself. You had to. Did people come to you and ever say, oh, it's evil, demonic, you're crazy? Did you hear that from anybody?
No. And I knew, and you know, one of the reasons why, and to whoever's watching, I'll give this little tip. I didn't have any role models. I didn't have anyone to turn to. I was totally an island, totally alone, having to walk very carefully. Not that there weren't other people out there.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about to guide me personally, mentors and things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And what I did is I always took the approach. One is I had faith in me and what was happening in me. I knew it was for a higher purpose, and I knew that I wasn't losing it. I knew that I was still the same person with only a different ability and skill to add to my resume now. And I was not going to back down from that, because I could still carry on conversations with the best of them in any arena and discuss theory, educational research, whatever it might be, because that's what I built my life on. So as I went forward then, what I began to realize is that this path going forward, there weren't too many options when you choose this path. And after a while, I wanted this path too. I wanted them both at first, you know, but I wanted this path too. The only option, and I say this to your viewers very seriously, is absolute truth.
Ah, yes.
Truth. There's no other option. I was true to God. I was true to myself. Even after the book, We the Arcturians was written, see, at that time, I was one of the consultants at DOE. I was one of their trainers for, job task analysis. I was training their security forces, their police forces, for all of the Department of Energy at Central Training Academy. And I kept thinking, I'd look at my 15-page resume, and I'd look at this book, and look at the, because I quietly, on the right side over here. And I thought to myself, I'm going to lose my job, and because especially then a few of us knew about Area 51. Today the world knows about Area 51, not in the 80s. And I thought, oh my goodness, what are my choices here? So what I did is I went inward and I prayed on it. And I saw the content in We the Arcturians. I thought, well, this stuff is too good. People have to have a choice at least. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I published it. But that first day, I took a copy into my boss at DOE, and I said to them, I sat down in truth and I said, listen, I want to tell you what I've just published, what's just happened. And I said, I want you to see it and hear it from me. If you have any questions, if you even want a demo of this, I'd be happy to give it to you. But I said, this is my truth, because right on the cover of, the book, it says here, a true experience.
That's
and
right.
This is and was a true experience. And so I think what happened then is because I was true to God first, because I really felt that something in the future was opening up for humanity, and that somebody had to plant a seed or share an experience or something. And because that happened, and I believed that, I honestly felt that I was going to try it this way. What did I have to lose? Because I knew me. I had a lot of courage in my soul. And I knew that I would go ahead and I'd go forward with it. And sure enough, it did not affect anything. I think it's because I stood there in my truth, but I was honoring God. And I didn't talk God to Ted, when I handed him the book and things like that. But in my heart, I knew what I was doing. And I just said, it's in your hands. And sure enough, in fact, shortly after that, they had me on another assignment in town. In Washington, D.C. and stuff like that. So, and I learned from that. I thought, wow, I was trembling to the bone, wondering what the heck should I do with this experience? And in hindsight, it was like, what was that? Nothing. Because I stood in truth and I honored God and myself. And there you go, Karen. There was nothing. No one came to me and was, ridiculing or anything at all like that at all. No. Mm-mm.
I got to say, when you stand in your truth, as Norma's talking about, that's your way of stating an intention that we opened the show with this intention, invocation. That's the same thing. When you want to follow your truth, God's truth, the ultimate truth, what is the truth, and stand in that is your same way saying, this is what I intend. Very powerful story you're sharing with us. Now, I know everybody's going to be really excited to hear a little bit more about your experiences, what the Arcturians told you, because you guys, when you read the book, there's different sections, and some of you probably have already read the book. It's been out for a long time.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, 89, I think it was. Was it 89?
90. I have to even check the copy.
Yeah, I can't remember, like the late 80s. I remember, and you guys, I had seen it for years.
1990.
Okay, and then I finally decided to read it, and I just fell in love with it again, as I'll tell you. But because of the message they gave her, how she did it, but then where it took her. So let's talk about some of these messages when you work with them through this word processor. What are some of the important things you think came out of this that they shared with you for humanity?
You mean in the book?
Yes, in the book.
Well, I think the biggest message that they conveyed in all of the messages they sent through me there was one theme, and that is we do resonate, we live and experience a higher dimensional frequency. You might call it a parallel universe if you want, or I don't know, really in physics how they would define it. But they were trying to show us there is a better way if you have an open mind to live. And the second thing, the message they were trying to share by comparing what they did at a higher dimension and what we're doing on Earth.
Yeah.
Just by stating what they are doing on the higher dimension, it became the comparison because we could look around and figure out how we do things down here. Just by doing that, they were leading the way and trying to help people who had an open mind. They made it very clear that that was one of the criteria, where they could live a more blessed life, less conflict, more into the creation that has been put into our soul, and we could experience that. They've since said that that's from the higher aspects of the soul, not lower. Earth is often ruled by the five senses and the lower aspects of the soul. You know, going to Vegas and fun and games and drugs and all this kind of stuff. But when you get into the higher aspects of the same soul that's within you, then what you've done in the past no longer fits, and you have to have a new way. And they were very clever, I think, in showing the difference as to what has happened to them and what their world is like. But there was a second part to that. They made it very clear, if I remember everything that came through in that book, and that is, we are moving in the precession of the equinoxes. Earth has no choice. We are moving higher and higher in our own vibrational frequency, and we're going to end up there anyway. So if that's the case, and that world in parallel universe, dimension, whatever you want to call it, is already operating with its own rules and laws that are so beautiful. Do they really want someone like us coming with our threats of atomic bombs and war and, you know, all of the things that go on down here? And it's coming right from the people themselves, the choices that they make.
Right.
And that message came through real clearly, I believe. Now, maybe others read it and they get a different message. I don't care if they describe how they educate their people, how they eat, what's on their ship, or whatever.
Which is in the book too, you guys. It's kind of interesting, but it's the overall message that really got me. I was like, this is beautiful.
You know what I love the most is when they took the 23rd Psalm at the very end, and what we think the 23rd Psalm means, they literally interpreted it line by line. And they made it so beautiful. And you just look at that and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, this is really, really, you know, something that makes your heart open and sing when you get a different interpretation. Because they're, I don't know, it's just everything about them. I guess if you have a higher IQ or higher wisdom or whatever, you're capable of that. But if you're kind of stuck down here, you know, like flies on flypaper, it's kind of hard to find a different way to do things, but we're pretty stuck. But I'm telling you, I've always loved intelligence. My greatest pet peeve in life is either laziness or when people act stupid. I don't think there are stupid people. I think they hide behind that to get out of responsibility and work and doing things and things like that. And but the beings at that level, they would meet you in your mind and in your heart, almost in a dream state where things were so graceful and beautiful. And that meant a lot to me. And that was several decades ago. And today, when you look at the world, oh my goodness, it looks as though it's like almost going insane.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I don't like to go there. I can acknowledge it. We have to see everything on our spiritual paths. Mm-hmm. You know, the masters always say, what you resist persists. So open, see it. But that doesn't mean you have to give it any energy.
Yes.
But don't You know, don't try to deny it or hide it or something like that, because that's not going to get you any mileage in this lifetime. You have to see it. So you and I can see that insanity, but that doesn't mean we have to be a part of it. You know, we can hold our own intentions and our own goals in the light and keep doing our part.
That's really important for everybody to hear. That is like you know, I get written messages all the time, and I'm sure you do too, Norma, and people to ask you probably in their readings also, you know, the world seems so chaotic, what's going on? And the message I've always received is this is part of the awakening, this is part of the transition period. A lot of times you got to shake things up to move forward, and that's what's happening, and not to get caught up in all this divisiveness. As you said, you acknowledge what's happening, but you also learn to create your own intentions of how you want your life to be. So it's not being in denial, as Norma just said, it's about being awake and aware, but also learning that you have the ability to shift your energies into another direction and into this other dimension where you also exist, and pull more of that into your awareness now. The book is splendid because when they talk to her, they talk about such topics as we're talking about right now. They talk about having your awareness to shift and change. And that's what's happened to you. I mean, I remember the two ladies you were working with, you guys met, you brought in the messages, and you also had time to discuss it and practice what they said, they suggested that you could try. Maybe you want to talk about some of the ways they affected you on those levels that you actually have it used within your life from the messages you received.
Well, I can think of one, you know, just offhand, a really big one.
Yeah.
In those years, I was one of the few female professors in our department. And I'm not in any way putting my colleagues down in the department, but it was different for women, especially in academia then, you know, 20, 30 years ago. And it's still hard sometimes today, but it was a little difficult then, you know, for some women that were trying to move forward. Well, sometimes when I would have ideas and things like that, I felt like that my voice wasn't being heard, or maybe because I was a woman, they didn't want to acknowledge my ideas, that if they're all men, you know, that they wanted to put their agendas through. I'm just trying to be kind and nice here.
Sure.
The viewers are going, oh man, let me tell you my stories, you know.
You're right.
It's the age-old battle, you know, that we're trying to shift. We're trying to bring everyone into more balance and more grace. Well, I don't even remember the issue now, and it's not even important. It's probably a small issue, but there was something, and I was just so frustrated because I felt like a lot of times I was sabotaged, you know, because for whatever reason, maybe somebody didn't want a woman to have the right idea or whatever, and it was very frustrating. And I remember one day going to the window, and in this case, I was already connected to the Ascended Masters. I was with Kathumi, and that's a higher level, 7th dimension than the Arcturians. But I couldn't figure out, I was trying to practice all these beautiful concepts that they had given to me, and that were beautiful, and they were always wonderful. And this one, I was so upset because this was just unending with this issue and stuff. So I went out and looked out the window at the beautiful Sandia Mountains, and I'm just looking out there, trying to balance. And I remember saying, how can I forgive them if they just keep going forward and they do the same thing, you know, and it's just a different hat that next day that they're wearing, but it's the same trickery and, you know, stopping and blocking and whatever. And I remember saying, I don't understand your concept of forgiveness. I know your words are beautiful and just forgive and things like that. And I said, because to me, this is what my conversation was in my mind. I said, Kasumi, if I forgive and the next day it happens again and I forgive again, and it happens again and I forgive again, it's like putting a sign on my back, kick me again, kick me again, kick me again. And it goes round and round and round and round. And this example also shows you where I was as compared to the guidance that I get or got at the time. and to why I wouldn't take credit. I always gave him credit for the wisdom that was coming through me. Because I heard his voice telepathically say to me, "Oh, daughter, try this one. Forgiveness is nothing more than letting go." I thought, whoa, well, that's a different slant.
Sure is.
I thought, yeah, if this happened, I can say to myself, let it go, let it go, let it go. But to forgive and go through, my mind, I was at a lower level. I was at a different level, trying to figure things out. And so I started doing that. And then, of course, later it was explained, the more you let go, it's like clearing your clutter around you, the more you let go, the more space there is for new things, higher things to come in.
So true.
And all I had to do was let go, but evidently I was forgiving, but I wasn't letting go.
Ah, get it.
And, he put it right in there with such a clear, concise, one sentence, statement there. And I thought, I can do that. So whenever things like that started happening, and if it, in the future, over some small thought, whatever it might be, all I would do is say to myself, let it go.
It's beautiful.
Let it go. Stay in joy. And guess what? That raised my vibrations up a little.
Yep.
And you never get the same test anymore. They stopped it.
I knew it was going to go away when you shift your focus elsewhere.
If you raise up, you no longer get the tests of initiation, the lessons, whatever, on the lower level. I didn't know that. I had never channeled about tests of initiation. And then the light shall set you free. That's when we have the tests of initiation. They sent it through. They let you know some of the things, or even lessons in life. So that would be probably the best example I have of taking their advice, practicing it, trusting it, and then watching my life shift. Because after that, I was free. I was free. And it was that one sentence, daughter, forgiveness is nothing more than letting go.
Wow. So
I couldn't figure it out on my own. That's why that information that was coming through was so priceless. And I really felt, if it's doing this for me, there's a lot of other people that need these answers. Because if I can't figure it out on my own, or I'm reading and reading and reading, and I'm not getting the answers, or that, that quick fix, and this does, hey, share it. Help humanity, share it. And that's what I did.
Well, I got to tell you, that's a beautiful story of a testimonial to the purity of this information coming through. I know a lot of people that are part of this channel, they also channel, and they also work with the different energies, and their question is, how do I know this is good, this is bad, or etc.? Maybe not that big of an extreme, but how do I know this is, because people are always saying, hey, this may not be good, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't listen to other voices, you shouldn't automatic write. But I think you hit the nail on the head. This is an example of how the information helps you become even greater within yourself and within the world at large, so you are a better person, kinder person. And the messages are loving and unconditional. They never tell you what to do. They only give you beautiful, simple nudges, as you said. And I think that's what people need to really understand, Norma, as you're talking about this, is how do you know this information, it comes from a great place? Because again, we're dealing with unseen dimensions. We're dealing with realms that we can't necessarily see with our physical apparatus we've been given, all of our senses, and you have to see them on, as they call it, I have to see with my inner eye or with my heart. So maybe you could talk about that a little bit more, about this energy coming through, the messages coming through, and how people can work with that to navigate the energies, but also to understand what it is they're in communication with.
Well, yes, I can address that. And this might startle a lot of people who are bringing information through, or they might even be offended. But I'm going to say it because it's my truth. Okay. And it worked for me. That's the only criteria that I go by. And that is, when you first start channeling, the greatest advice that you can actually follow is never channel on yourself.
That's great.
You know what? Because your ego, your subconscious is so connected to your wants, your needs, you know, like, oh, wow, look at me, look what I can do now, look how many people I can help. Or sometimes they go, you know, you get a little off balance, look at the fame or something like that that can come with all of this. On a spiritual path, that is not the road you want to take. And when you start channeling on yourself right in the beginning, you run the risk, because your subconscious is so close to you.
Yeah.
You actually run the risk of putting in there part of you. You know, concepts, beautiful concepts that you know. You could channel beautiful messages, but it might just be, say, a part of you or something. And you'll never know when you cross the line between what it is you want or need, because you're channeling on yourself, and, oh, wow, this has to be true or something like that. Now, I know a lot of them do that. But I'm telling you, if you want to take the path and go further, cut that out in the beginning. Or if you're doing it, cut it out. Channel for people, channel for humanity, channel for service, for higher wisdom, for higher concepts. Because that way, you're just a student. You're as new at this as anyone else is. So what you're getting, you have no vested interest in. So, Karen, that's the first piece of advice that I would give.
Great.
The second piece of advice I would give to people would be to measure the quality of information that is coming through and its consistency. Yeah. We've already addressed that in this interview. And work to make sure that every piece of guidance or knowledge or wisdom that came through you was always at a higher level. And that doesn't always mean that it's going to be easier or easy to follow the guidance, because much on the spiritual path is about each one of us facing our own resistance, our own blockages and barriers, things we do not want to address. That's why so many of us go into denial. And when you have the courage and you try it, even though it's very difficult, almost very painful to do, and then you find out you're blessed and it's better and all of these doors open and everything, that's when you know that it's higher guidance taking you by the hand and gently walking you through this path. Many people feel that the spiritual path should be, oh, bliss and just joy and everything like that. And I stand in front of all of them. I'll stand in front of an audience of 1 million and being the only one. And I'll tell you, that is not the only path. That is a part of it. But the true spiritual path is chopping wood and carrying water.
I love that.
For brothers and sisters on this planet. And only through that do you eventually get the rewards of the joy and the bliss and the things like that, you know, too.
It's doing the work on yourself. One of the things that our guides that come through, I channel, that come through, they always talk about it's important to really look at yourself and to not sweep it under the carpet, to do your own inner work, find that strength at the core of yourself, the center of yourself, and look at that honestly, which requires energy. It really requires a lot of effort.
It requires more energy than just,
exactly.
You know, sipping lemonade on the back patio and just saying, here it is, you know, I've made it. No.
You work for this. You really do. And I love what you talked about earlier where you said, stop channeling for yourself directly, work for humanity, for people. And that's what the guides say as well. They say, do this work for others. And then you get to step out of your filters. When you do this work, your filters influence you, your perceptions, your beliefs, and you have to really step aside or look at them and see how you're influencing the message. I mean, that's so critical. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, I don't find that a lot of people that are out there bring that message. But it's interesting. The reason why I will say it is because from day one, and me being lifted to the level of Kuthumi, El Morya, the Ascended Master, Sananda, Jesus the Christ, you know, all of those at that level, I'm constantly receiving guidance that keeps me in that humble, disciplined mode to accept the responsibility of your work and humanity, to do your best, to strive for perfection, whatever that is defined for you to be. And I've got that message from day one. And so all I can do is deliver what the Ascended Masters have delivered to me. So I'm also true to my soul. I am true to my, whatever this mission is that I've been assigned to down here. And this is the message that I want to bring. That all will change when we're on the higher dimensions. You know, when we're living in a parallel universe, and then we have to start all over again. We have to learn the laws, the rules, everything there, like kindergarten kids again, you know, moving forward. But right now, that's the message that has guided my life. I have no regrets. I haven't found one piece of information that wasn't solid and wasn't beautiful and strong, and it helped me work through any blockage that I might have faced at the time. And because it was so strong and powerful for me, and because of the thousands of emails and calls and people that have connected to me after they've read the books and gone through my workshops, you know, that we have a lot of other things too, you know, like the workshops on CDs, DVDs, things like that. We have a lot of different things here. And every one of them is thank you, thank you, thank you, because they have gone the route that I was guided. It doesn't mean it's the only route. I don't want some of your viewers to say, no, mine was different. That's great. Even Jesus said, many paths,
yes,
but one way. And so I only deliver what has come through me for now 30 years of dedication, you know, to this work. And so that's why I deliver this message. And I will guide people the same way I was guided, because it never steered me wrong, not even one day. So I'm very assured of, you know, what I say to people and to you on the show. I'm very confident that if they would follow a similar path, I don't think they could go wrong.
Oh, that's wonderful, Norma. We're at a place in the show where I always ask my guests to provide inspiration. I think you're already doing that. But if anybody was out there and watching this show, and if they could take, you know, one gem away from this whole thing, that, you know, we watch something, it's hard to take it all in sometimes. But what is that one thing you want the listeners, the audience to hear that they can take away from the show that will help them evolve even more into their greatest self?
Take God's hand and never let go. And I learned that from the Arcturians, even though they use words like the great central sun.
Right.
I learned it from the masters. I personally honor Jesus the Christ. I am so devoted and so aligned with his work, but that also comes from the masters. Not everybody does that. And yet at the same time, I have some Buddha statues in my home too. I mean, that's the love of my feng shui and Batsi and all of these Chinese metaphysical areas that I love, and I'm doing a lot of work and studying in for the last 20 years. That doesn't bother me to have it, because I know the priorities, I know the hierarchy, I know where my heart is, and that is, especially in troubled times, and I think it's going to get worse down here, Karen, before it gets better.
I do too.
But I have a vision that this might be over in about 5 or 6 years, though, and I'm holding on to that too, at the longest. And you cannot go wrong if the first thing you do every day when you awaken is you look up and you say, Dear God, let thy will be done through me. Let me be your hands, let me be your voice, let me be your legs. Where do you need for me to go? What do I need to do? And as long as you hold that in your heart and you mean it, and then in this case, I literally honor the Holy Trinity. Kuthumi sends messages through so often about the Holy Trinity and how the Holy Spirit Even Jesus said, of me I do nothing. It is the Father within me that does it all. And to work with the Holy Spirit, letting that power flow through you. Don't take credit for it. And even look at the world around you, everything you have. You own nothing. It all belongs to God. This is His creation. And if you can keep that with humbleness in your mind and in your heart, and you always align with the way that you need to align and give grace and praise and glory where it is due, I don't think that anyone here will ever go wrong, and we'll see each other cross that finish line, and hopefully it'll come up in sooner than 5 years or so. And that is the best piece of advice I can think of, Karen.
I mean, I think you nailed it with that. It resonates as you're speaking, and I'm sure those are going to feel the same way you're speaking about it and how to go about it. I love what you said, how may I serve? One of the things I say in the morning before I start my day too is I say to the universal energy, God, source, I say, it's a beautiful day in every way. How may I serve? How may I play? I made it into a poem.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great? And it's because...
Wonderful.
Thank you. It's because I want to serve, but I want to have joy. And play reminds me of joy. And you guys, when you have joy and when you're serving, the energy, it becomes your intention. That becomes your intention, and it raises your vibration to attract wonderful things to you in the day. I mean, life has its ups and downs, but to attract ways to work with it a little more smoother. I always look at ways that we can help everybody to have a smoother life. Doesn't mean there's not bumps, but just being able to navigate through our third dimensional lives as well as our spiritual lives. So if you guys want to use that, it's a beautiful day in every way. How may I serve? How may I play? By all means, use it.
We can use anything that we can get, and thanks for offering it. I'll even use that.
Please do.
I've never heard that before, but I really love it.
Well, I created it. It'll be below in the comment sections, as also all of Norma's links. Well, Norma, we've come to the end of our interview already. And where can everybody find you? Tell them about what you got going on, what's coming up for you, where they can find you. And you guys, links will all be below.
Well, as you so eloquently said in the beginning, one of the things that I have been doing for 30 years, and I've been in almost every country, big country on the planet. There's only a couple that I haven't been on, even North Pole and South Pole.
I know. I saw that.
There. I haven't brought it through yet, but I'm planning now to do another journey. And but I'm not going to say where it is yet, because I put it out in messages, and the message carries the intention, the goals, objectives, as according to what the masters are requesting. So that will be coming up, and that probably will be out maybe, I would say, in the next 6 weeks or so.
Ooh.
We'll have those messages out. And it's always fun to meet new people. I have had people on my journeys that have been, you won't believe this, Karen, but some of the people on the journeys have been on 30, 40 of the journeys. That's how much they believe in them.
Wow.
That's how much they see the magic, the miracles that happen. Nobody would go on a second or third journey if it was a bummer.
You're right.
This group is so dedicated. They're strong. They're some of the strongest warriors you can imagine. But every journey we have new people, new faces, which is really nice. So that's one of the things.
Okay.
The second thing that we're doing right now, and this is the 8th year of it, Kuthumi does a class 10 times a year. And those classes build one upon another on the ascension process. Under Kuthumi's guidance and tutelage, no one is to begin taking these classes like where we are now. Because when you see the power, the incredible wisdom and knowledge that has come through in year 1, 2, 3, and they're all building on one another, if a person wants to enter, they have to start taking these classes from year 1, 2, 3, but they're all taped. They can get the messages, everything is all there, and they can learn from that on their own. Because there's only about 10 a year, it doesn't take long to go through those years, then they can join us live. Another thing is I have 2 books They're from the celestial voices and the laws of the universe and the different dimensions in that coming out. My son and I, Rudy and I, are just finishing the editing on these.
Oh, yay.
Information is priceless in these. They're absolutely phenomenal, and they're never outdated. And it's showing you the law of grace, the law, every single law that they have in the higher dimensions of time, space, and explaining it and everything. So as we go higher, this is timely information, because we have to leave our rules, laws, and regulations from the third dimension, and now we have to learn the higher laws. The masters have sent this through now, and pretty soon we'll have those books out. But that's in the future too. And then some of the other things, I'm planning to teach a class. Every now and then, Kuthumi has a special concept. Like a couple of years ago, he put us through what's called the deception program. He wanted us, a lot of light workers, they're just kind of dreamy-eyed, and they only, that's too negative for me, kind of thing. And no, I only want to see happy faces everywhere. Well, I'm sorry, but this world is made up of duality, and a part of the curriculum is to resist nothing. Like Kuthumi says, what you resist persists. And they wonder why they're stuck in different areas of their lives, and it's because they're in denial. So he put the group through this 4 different classes on seeing through the Maya, seeing through the illusion of all the things that were in front of us, like the Las Vegas glitter. And some of them, they took it, but in the beginning they were resistant. It's like, no, I don't want to go here. But at the end, oh my word. Oh, Karen, they were so empowered, because nothing would hold them back anymore. Nothing would see. They could see through it all. They weren't afraid anymore. They had no fear, because they got it in a class and and they could see it wherever it was, the deceptions, the lies, all of these things. Well, those were very successful, very, very successful a couple of years ago, the 4 of them. And now there's another one coming up. I don't know the title yet of it, but this fall, if your viewers or you or anybody wants to learn about it, they can just check the website and come there, and we'll have that advertised and we'll show that. And then finally, the other thing that I've spent 20 years, it's like piggybacking in my personal journey in life. And that is, I started out in traveling to the Far East and practicing and taking classes from some of the best feng shui Chinese masters on the planet. And learning the formulas for feng shui, are they complicated, and it just keeps your head spinning. It isn't like put a red lamp here, kind of thing. That goes into other, like Batsi, which is your personal profile of DNA and how that fits into feng shui. And then it's Shimen Denja, where you can just look at anything and you can predict almost to the hour of the day when certain things will happen.
Wow.
Well, this has been my personal hobby, my personal love, but it's also my career. And because I know these formulas and these laws are so high level, they actually reveal God's laws higher up at the universe. Because everything works. All they have to do is see the pieces and check it, on a chart or something, and everything falls together. And you can see it. You can do the prediction. I personally believe that every single person on the planet will have to get this instruction, or at least start out in this lifetime before we cross over, or this is going to be our kindergarten classes on higher level. So you either, buckle up and get it now, or you start at a higher, when you're in a higher dimension, you start there. Well, I'm slowly putting together some of these classes that, starting with the feng shui, but I'm now helping people with Batsi readings and things like that, which is your DNA, and it's just right to the core of your existence. And it's amazing how they use the elements, the trigrams, and the things like that. But I teach at the same time. I just don't give the information, I teach it. So that's in my future too, to do
Wow.
smaller, maybe 6, 10, 15 people or so, just gently nudge them, give them individual attention, do feng shui analyses. I just finished 4 different reports for different clients and people where I could analyze, all the problems, the things and that they're having, the blockages and that, because everything will appear in your home. That home has your DNA blueprint in it when you choose it. And so this is another area that I'm going with. I do things online. I teach classes online instead of traveling like I used to. I'm on the books, that are coming out. And but in the future, I'm also starting to write again. This is something that I really want to do, is take the wisdom up here, excuse me, and get it out there to the public.
I think it's great you're writing again. You have the first 3 books. We've showed them here during the interview, as well as you'll see them again, you guys, at the end of the show. But I'm happy to hear, yes. But I'm happy to hear you're writing again.
Yeah, me too. Well, I've been writing for these last 20 or 30 years.
Right,
but I've been in the classes, I've been writing workshops, I've been writing messages. I also do readings for people. I do all these things. So I'm constantly writing. But now I'm going to put some together in a format.
Good.
And that's where my heart is.
That's fantastic. Well, that's going to be exciting. You'll definitely have to tell us a little bit more about that book. You guys, also her website, we've got the links below. It's an incredible website. It's the Athena Leadership Center. She is the president of it, and it's chock full of information and courses. And as you can see, she's a super busy lady. Norma, it has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I enjoy you so much, and I'm certain the audience will as well. So thank you so much again for joining us here.
For inviting me, and God bless your audience, and God bless you for doing it.
Thank you so much. Well, you guys, there you have it. Here's a woman who's really pushing boundaries. I mean, what started with her career was going one direction, opened her up when the Arcturians came in and started communicating with her. It just changed her whole life, and she went with it. But I think the most important thing, if you can hear from this whole story, is her belief in God and holding his hand and not letting go, and also her belief and trust in herself. So get out there now, explore the universe, but believe in you and believe in Source and God. And you shall find, too, that everything will be revealed to you in time. Thank you so much for joining us here. This is Creative Visions TV. I'm Karen Dahlman, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.